Now, the rand has recovered after falling to a 4-month low last week, although the local currency moderated from the record low in today's early trade. There are still a number of factors that pose a risk to the rand's performance going forward. Keenan Moses, RMB's Forex Sales Trader, joins us now for more insight. Thank you so much for your time, Keenan. Now, we've seen the rand slightly firmer against the US dollar today. Are investors applying some caution to the dollar in anticipation for this week's economic data out of the US?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as you mentioned, right, the rand is getting some sort of reprieve today in intraday trade. We opened around the 1928 levels in early hours and then saw it climb up to close of which is the weekly highs to 1932. The lows around 1907, if I'm not mistaken, when I left my desk last.
Yeah.
But I mean, just from around the table discussions, it does seem like an order correction of how quickly the rand in the latter part of last week and into this week as well, how it lost sort of quite a bit of ground very quickly. I mean, that's just one of my concerns, I think, is how quickly the rand weakens to these higher levels versus the gradual time taken to strengthen. I think it just echoes the sentiment of the weakness and volatility at the rand at the moment. We're currently sitting 15 out of 23 in the emerging market basket of currencies and 12 out of 16 against the major currencies. So yeah, this does seem to be a rand dollar story at the moment. If you look at where euro and pound is trading as well, rand in the last week, I would say local unit traded up to weekly high of 1935 in the afternoon session on Monday, which obviously posts the new high for the year. So I think that does link to the negative investor sentiment post-budget, which sees the rand lose about, give or take, 2.4% in the last week. Further minutes out of the US also reaffirming their stance on the interest rate, which is higher for longer. And I think markets have all but ruled out a cut in the next Fed meeting in March. Also pushed back maybe expectations for a cut in May to June as well.
Yeah, just talking about that budget, it was also quite interesting because, I mean, straight after the budget, the rand didn't really seem to react. And so you kind of thought that investors welcomed that until, I think, the next day. So what made investors nervous about what came out of the budget?
Yeah, I mean, as mentioned, I think there was some immediate positive response from the market post-budget, seeing the rand steading to levels around the 1876 mark. As more information became available, I think sentiment then drove the market, right? So we saw a quick move in the rand breaking the 19 mark, which we believe is a big psychological level. It traded all the way up to about 1919 on the day. I think my key takeaways from the budget specifically would be just the forecast coming out of there. The National Treasury is on course to achieve a primary budget surplus in the current fiscal year. I think it will be the first time the revenue will exceed non-interest expenditure since about 2008, 2009.
Wow.
The taxes also as well. So I think the finance minister will raise an additional 15 billion in 2024, 2025. I think that's primarily by not adjusting personal income tax brackets to account for inflation and increasing some other taxes as well. I think the most important part, and I think this is where sort of market sentiment and the more information that became available, was the debt trajectory, which was improved because of the government's decision to tap into the 150 billion rand in paper profits made on its gold and foreign exchange contingencies, the reserve account, and paying down borrowings, right? So I think they will draw down 100 billion in 2024 and 2025, and then 25 billion rand in each of the following 2 fiscal years. So if you look at that, and then obviously just coupled with growth, economic growth seen averaging 1.6% over the next 3 years, marginally higher than the 1.4% projected, which was in November last year. GDP is also expected to expand 1.3% this year, as energy and logistic challenges remain risks to the outlook. Power cuts are expected to gradually ease in 2024. So I think just purely based on that, we sort of get how the budget has affected the rand in the last week or so.
Yeah, of course, one of the big things that does affect the rand is inflation, and we've been getting murmurings that Treasury has hinted that it could support the South African Reserve Bank in lowering the inflation target. Of course, this is something that Governor Lesetja Kganyago has been calling for a number of years. So looking at maybe an inflation target of 2 to 3%. Could this move structurally boost the rand if it does happen?
Sure. I mean, a very interesting topic, I think, that you brought up there. I think we have been having these ongoing talks of inflation targets being moved and aligned for some time now. As I understand, I think the governor has suggested that South Africa needs a lower inflation target and has proposed around 3%, which he believes is aligned to the other major emerging markets. I do understand where he's coming from an economic standpoint. I think we need to create growth and drive revenue. And by doing this, we create a more competitive economy, right? Historically, we look back when the inflation number comes off the lows, we do see the rand relief and some strength, but this doesn't last for too long. If we do a comparison to record lows of inflation, which occurred in, give or take, 2004, we saw the rand dollar trade around the 6 rand mark, and relatively all-time highs in August 2008. The rand then traded around the 13 rand mark. So I think there's lots to still discuss with regards to amending this band and moving the target. But I do think it's something that won't go away anytime soon. I also think, I mean, at the moment, the governor is just kind of focused on managing this uncontrollable inflation number. I feel like it has slightly softened, but I mean, this is presented in our interest rate decisions, right? So I think the Reserve Bank governor wants to remain aligned to international markets as well. There are other factors that he has to consider, obviously, before cutting rates ahead of the global economy.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your insights there, just giving us an update on the movements that we have seen in the rand. In the last 2 weeks, that was RMB Forex Sales Trader Keenan Moses.